by Laura Mueller and Alicia Hilligus from the admissions office, as well as our speakers that we'll be introducing to you today. We're delighted to have you here. I want to congratulate each of you on your admission to Drake Law School. You worked very hard to get to this point, and we're delighted to have you amongst our admitted students, and we are looking forward to sharing more information with you about Drake. Today's focus is going to be on practical skills training, specifically our clinic and internship and other employment opportunities during law school. Drake is well known for a school that has a strong reputation for preparing students for practice and for practical skills training. Some of you may have heard of our only first-year trial practicum that just happened earlier this month, where we bring a live trial to the beautiful courtroom in our Drake Legal Clinic, and students get to observe a trial proceedings from beginning to end and have an excellent opportunity to talk with jurors and the judge and the attorneys after the case. Another example, I think, of the great opportunities in practical training comes through our faculty. All of our faculty at Drake actually practiced law before they became professors. And that's unique. When you meet with professors at other law schools, you'll find that it's unique to have all of them who've had practical experience in their own careers before coming to law school. And they bring that into the classroom, as well as offer that as a great resource for our students who often get counsel and advice from our faculty that are able to share information based on their own personal experiences. So without further ado, we want to go ahead and get started today. We have a lot of great things on the program, but I just wanted to welcome you, congratulate you, and we will do our best to get all of your questions answered for you today. We'll go ahead and get started, and I do have you can see on the screen here, we do have a chat feature today, so please feel free to use that. We'll have a Q&A session built into our program, but we'll also be monitoring the chat box, and we'll answer questions that way as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Laura.
Okay, thank you, Kara. So just to go over our agenda for tonight's event, we're going to kick things off, learning a little bit more about the Career Development Office and opportunities that they offer. Next, we'll be talking about clinics and experiential learning opportunities. We will also have a current student joining us tonight to talk to us a little bit more about his, search for a law school, his extracurricular involvement here at Drake, as well as internships that he's been involved with. Then we'll go ahead and go into our Q&A session. So any questions that you have for Katie, Susie, for our current student, feel free to make sure you either put those in the chat, or you can feel free to unmute yourselves at that time during the Q&A, and we can answer your questions then. And then to finish our event, we will have some admitted student information. If you joined us for our last event, you'll probably want to sign off at this time because it'll be a repeat of information. But if this is your first event with us, you'll want to stick around for that information at the end of our session. So to get things started, I am going to turn things over to Katie Overberg, who is our Director of Career Development, to talk to us more about her office. Katie?
Thank you so much, Laura. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Good. I always have to check these days. Welcome and congratulations. I'm Katie. I'm the Director of the Career Development Office. I also have an Associate Director in our office. And between the two of us, we're both practicing attorneys with over 50 years combined practical legal experience. So myself, just so that you can understand my background and path, because it does come up a lot. I grew up on the north side of Chicago and went to undergrad down in St. Louis, and then ended up at Iowa Law School. And I've been in Iowa ever since. So for over 20 years, I've been an employment lawyer in a private practice firm here doing employment defense. And then I took that experience and went in-house counsel at Iowa State University. And after there, I was lured to Drake to do their Title IX work, where the dean then promptly plucked me and brought me over to the law school. And so my message to all future lawyers is, you have no idea where your path is going to take you, and my path is a great example of that. And that's what we're here to guide you through, is how to explore all those different interests you have, either as a 1L, a 2L, a 3L, because it all can change. And Carol in my office as well similarly has private practice experience and in-house experience before she came to the law school. So we are so excited to share our own experiences and help you figure out what kind of path you want to explore. And it's okay that you might not know your path, and it's okay that that path might change. So on this slide, there's a lot packed in here, but I kind of just wanted you to know what we do in our office. So in career development, we do counseling, we do programming, we do networking, we host on-campus interviews. This year they've been virtual, but we still call them on-campus interviews. We help the students with their summer and postgraduate job searches, and then we have a robust online resource for you. So what I mean by counseling in my world, it's that we meet with every 1L student sometime later in your first semester or start a second semester just to meet you and understand your interests, because it's so important that we do that, because if you've got something unique geographically, you want to go to New York, you want to go to New Mexico, or you have a unique practice area, that kind of stays top of mind for us when we meet you, and we can document that for ourselves. And then for the next 2 and 3 years, we're constantly in touch with you, because when I see something in New Mexico, I think of you and I'm going to send you that opportunity. So part of counseling is that getting to know you phase and giving you advice and guidance, but it's also reviewing your resume, updating cover letters, helping you with writing samples, anything that is part of applying for a job. We do mock interviews, we prepare you for those interviews. So that's our existence, is to help you find out what you want to try, help you apply, help you interview, and then progress through law school. Our programming is that we have programming all year long where we're trying to show you different types of law, criminal law, corporate law, civil law, social justice practice areas. Maybe you don't want to use your law degree in a traditional way. You want to use it in an in-house way that's not in the lawyer's office. All of those things we've seen, we've done, and we're prepared to help guide you on. So that's what our programming is some of it is on how to do a job search, how to do interviews, but the rest is about teaching you the different ways to be a lawyer, and then also bringing lawyers to you so you can help network and meet different lawyers, meet different types of lawyers. That's one of the best things about being in Des Moines, is there are so many lawyers here. We're at the heart of everything, legislatively, in the courts. The firms are all here, the bigger firms, smaller firms, medium firms. So many lawyers and alums around to help you. The on-campus interview program is kind of what it sounds like. We help structure interviews twice a year to facilitate that process for you. And then we also have job postings throughout the year, the rest of the 12 months. I say summer and postgraduate jobs, but we also have a lot of people who like to work throughout the school year as well. And that's another benefit of being in Des Moines if you'd like to do that. And then the online resources, what I've got for you here is kind of a snapshot of, this is all fairly new in the last year to us. It worked out well with COVID, but we've been trying to put more resources at your fingertips for when you need them. And then we're here to meet with you and email with you and do all those things. But so much of today's problem solving is doing it on your own time when you need it. And so we're trying to push more of our resources out to you. So I wanted you to be able to see this. There's some things that you won't be able to see until you're here as a student, that it's password protected, but you can get a really good flavor for the types of programming and the types of resources we're here to give you. So you can get, the red arrows are kind of showing you, if you're on Drake's website, you can go to the right and see career development. The top red tab is if you're interested in public interest and pro bono opportunities, public service. We have a lot of opportunities listed there. But otherwise, that resources for students tab has so many ways for you to get your initial questions answered, or maybe they give you more questions once you've looked at that. But we're really proud of a lot of the resources that we have, because we just find that in today's age, students would rather do some of the digging at 11 o'clock at night on their own, and then we just want to make sure those resources are there for you. If you're looking for out of state, some of these online resources are really meant for folks not looking in Des Moines, because the Iowa jobs are really, they're right here, right? They're coming to our campus, they're interviewing you here. When you're wanting to go to a different geography, we've got all the same resources for you. They're just not here on campus, but we've got all these subscriptions for you and all the ways to help you do that job search. If you want to work for the federal government, those resources are online as well. So particularly that jobs tab under resources for students is where we're usually working with our students that are wanting to go elsewhere, because we're fully prepared to support you in that search and make those connections and help you find those opportunities, whether it's for the summer or after graduation. And remember, you can do work here in Des Moines during the school year or even during your summers, and then still take that experience and go somewhere else. With our online resources, and then Carol and me in the office, we are just excited to have you, and we hope to meet you sometime shortly.
Thank you so much, Katie. So again, everyone, if you have questions for Katie, please go ahead and enter those in the chat. We will have our Q&A section at the end so that you can answer any questions that you have about the Career Development Office. But for now, we're going to move forward with our event, and I'm going to turn things over to Susie Pritchett, who is our Director of Clinics and Experiential Education. So Susie. Oh, yep.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Well, thank you so much for spending some time with us this afternoon and coming to hear a little bit about the practical training that Drake offers. Kara already told you a little bit about what makes Drake unique. We focus on giving you the actual lawyering skills and tools that you're going to need to hit the ground running when you graduate from Drake Law School. And that's really different from a lot of schools. At a lot of schools, students spend a lot of time in the classroom talking about the law on a theoretical level. Here at Drake, we have built into the curriculum ways for you to practice law while you're a law student, both to get those core legal skills underneath your belt, but also to think about, do you want to be a prosecutor? Do you want to be a public interest lawyer? Do you want to work in the corporate context? The amazing thing about our experiential learning programs is that you can take the time throughout your second and third year of law school to try a lot of different opportunities and decide where you want to be when you enter into the practice of law, and help to develop your professional identity. So I came to Drake just a few years ago, actually. I'm an Iowa native, but had been out at the University of Wyoming running an international human rights clinic there, which was really amazing. But also I was so excited to get the opportunity to come to Drake to be the director of the clinical and experiential education program, because Drake is a superstar in the world of experiential learning. And I knew that being a part of this very deep and well-rounded program at Drake was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And since I've arrived here, I've just been so pleased to see the amazing experience that our students have. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time telling you about what our experiential learning opportunities are. But I'm also happy to answer questions, because I know just in the time I have today, I'm going to be, hitting the tip of the iceberg. So on this slide here, I kind of have our four main components of what constitutes experiential learning at Drake. And this term experiential learning may not be familiar to you, but it is simply learning by doing, right? And it's a way that we as adult learners really learn well, right? It's one thing to sit and talk and read and be in the classroom, but for things to really sink in, doing them is an amazing way to become a lawyer and to become proficient in lawyering skills. And so we thought about how we can build out experiential opportunities throughout our curriculum here at Drake. Our main piece of experiential learning at Drake is our clinical program. This building you see in the background is the beautiful Neal and B. Smith Legal Center. At Drake, we have a dedicated building that houses our clinical programs. And it's amazing because it really operates like a law firm. You walk in the door, you're greeted by a receptionist, there's a waiting room, there's specific meeting rooms for clinics. Every student, or for clients, every student that works in the legal clinic has a dedicated workspace. Your faculty have offices. Your faculty, like supervising attorneys, sort of are there present in-house with you so that you can meet with them regularly, brainstorm ideas, and represent clients along with faculty. Clinics are the place where you get to actually be a lawyer during law school. Our clinics, and I'll talk about that more in another slide, but our clinics give you the opportunity to represent real clients in real legal cases, and we'll talk a bit more about those in a bit. But that is the hallmark of our experiential learning program. We then have a field placement program that's also, you'll see, referred to as our internship program. This is where students go out into legal employers in the community and work under practicing attorneys in an internship type placement, where you get academic credit for the work that you do with nonprofits, governmental organizations, and other kind of judicial clerkships. That's the other third prong of that. So you might spend time in a prosecutor's office litigating cases. We have a lot of students that work for judges, and part of that internship placement allows you to move forward and get credit toward your overall law school degree. We then have simulation courses that allow you to, in the classroom, develop some hands-on legal skills. This includes our trial advocacy program, which is really strong, and a lot of our students go through that program so that they have some good solid trial skills when they graduate. But it includes other courses like contract drafting, where you get the opportunity through an actual classroom course to try your hand at drafting legal contracts and having the feedback of a faculty member on those exercises. And then last but not least are our pro bono opportunities. And these are all of the other opportunities that law students engage in that are maybe legal in nature or maybe even a bit broader than the law, but they're volunteer opportunities. So they're not necessarily for credit, but they're certainly opportunities that we as a law school foster and put in place so that as early as your 1L year, you can get out there in the community and do either meaningful legal work or even meaningful volunteer work to make sure that we're giving back as we become lawyers in the study of law here at Drake. So we'll go to the next slide and just talk a little bit more about what our clinical opportunities look like. I know when I was choosing a law school, it was really important to me to know what types of practice areas I might have the opportunity to engage in while a law student. And at Drake, we're really lucky because we currently have 6 clinical programs, which is a lot for a school Drake's size. You are virtually guaranteed a place in our clinics when you come to Drake, whether that be at the end of your 2L year or sometime during your 3L year. That's something that a lot of law schools can say because they don't have these robust clinical programs in the way we do. And our practice opportunities through the clinic are really diverse. They range from our criminal defense clinic, where students are working under the supervision of a very well-regarded, seasoned criminal defense practitioner representing indigent clients in misdemeanors before Iowa courts. And let me tell you, we had just a couple of students go to court the other day representing a protester from the Black Lives Matter movement, and the students were able to get the court to enter a finding of not guilty on that case. And so really doing hands-on work that has amazing impact on the people that are being represented by students in that clinic. The Refugee Clinic is one that I co-direct with a teaching fellow. We are representing individuals in their asylum claims before the United States federal immigration agencies. So we regularly have students filing petitions with the federal government, going to immigration court, and also filing appeals before the Board of Immigration Appeals and the Circuit Court of Appeals. We just had a student in the Refugee Clinic complete 2 cases, one before the 9th Circuit Court of Appeals and another before the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals. And that's just a really amazing experience for that student to have had before she even graduates from law school. Our Entrepreneurial and Transactional Clinic gives students who are interested in more of a business or corporate practice opportunities to engage in transactional law. In that clinic, they're representing nonprofits, small businesses, minority-owned businesses, and helping them to both form entities, right? LLCs create sort of business entities that help new startup companies begin operating, right? And do so having thought through all the legal ramifications of what that looks like. But also nonprofits come up with policy manuals or answer questions about the lease on their building that they might want to enter into. And so students in that clinic are having a really amazing opportunity to learn about transactional law and what that looks like, particularly working with individuals or companies who otherwise wouldn't necessarily have access to legal counsel. Our Children's Rights Clinic engages in representation of kids, right? If you can imagine, being a lawyer for a kid looks slightly different than being a lawyer for an adult. You think about how much a kid can comprehend. How do you explain the law to a child in a way that makes sense to them? How do you advocate for a child when they maybe are, 2 years old and can't tell you what they want? Our Children's Rights Clinic provides opportunities for students to work with kids in the system, and primarily looking at children who have been, who are facing a juvenile delinquency charge, but then also looking at that kid from a really holistic perspective. Maybe they are facing a juvenile delinquency proceeding, but do they also have a homelessness issue they're dealing with? Maybe they have an immigration issue that's also causing them to run into trouble with the law, and thinking about what holistic representation of kids looks like. The Wrongful Convictions Clinic is brand new at Drake. It just started in January. It's a program where we cooperate with the Iowa State Public Defender, and students and faculty in that clinic are representing people who alleged to have been wrongly convicted, right? Perhaps there's new DNA evidence that has come along. Science has made advancements in looking at evidence that once upon a time was inconclusive, but maybe now if we take another look at it, it can actually help somebody establish their innocence. And we just had 2 students today do an argument in front of the state court on somebody who, claims innocence and has been in prison for decades. So really exciting work happening there. And then our last clinic is our general civil clinic. They do a lot of work in the area of family law, helping individuals get divorced, working on issues of child custody, but they also do some landlord-tenant issues and other issues representing survivors of domestic violence. So I can't, again, express to you how amazing it is to have such a plethora of opportunities. In each of these clinics, you have an experienced faculty member who you get to practice law alongside of throughout the course of the semester. You are eligible to work in a legal clinic in the 2nd semester of your 2L year or the 3rd year of law school. Students get between 4 to 6 credits a semester for their work in the legal clinic, and almost across the board, students tell me that their time in the legal clinic was the highlight of their law school career, and also that they felt so prepared to engage in the practice law upon graduation because of the time they spent in the legal clinic. So then we'll go to the next slide, and I'll just spend a little bit more time talking about some of our field placement opportunities, right? Those internships for credit that students go out into the community, into law offices, working under the supervision of licensed attorneys while getting law school credit. They really fall into 3 buckets, right? We have students in judicial internships where you really are serving the role of a clerk and a research assistant to a judge. We have these happening in state courts, in the Iowa Court of Appeals, the Iowa Supreme Court, and then in federal courts as well. So students spend the semester working alongside the judge, writing research memos, drafting opinions in cases. We have an amazing relationship with both the state and federal bench here at Drake. And so students have had really wonderful experiences in those judicial internships. And it's such a unique opportunity to get a behind the bench perspective so that once you're out in the practice of law, having seen how judges make decisions can be so beneficial in your legal practice. We have a very large prosecution program where students go and intern with the Polk County Prosecutor's Office, and we also have a few students go up to Dallas County, which is just north of Des Moines, and Story County, which covers Ames. Students in those prosecution internships are taking the lead on cases. I don't know if any of you followed the case that the trial that was just held at the Drake Legal Clinic. It was one where a reporter for the Des Moines Register was charged with a crime, having been arrested during the Black Lives Matter protests. And there was a Drake law student who was co-chairing the prosecution's case and, fully handled large parts of that case, cross-examination, making part of the opening statement. So certainly an experience that she's going to have with her forever because it was such a high-profile case. So many eyes were watching, and she really rose to the opportunity. But just amazing that she had the chance to play such a large role. And then we also place students in state agencies, so state government with the Attorney General's office. We have students with the Department of Natural Resources. Almost any state agency that has lawyers working in it, we have either placed law students for a semester there, or we are open to thinking about what it would look like to place a law student there. I will say that if you go on our website and look through what the internship offerings are, and you don't see something you're interested in that's listed there, we have an independent internship opportunity, so you can go ahead and shape and create your own internship if you find a place that you'd like to do that at. And as long as you're being supervised by a licensed attorney and we feel reasonably certain that you're going to have a good educational experience there, the faculty have been willing to approve those to, really the sky's the limit and make that possible for our students. So I'm going to leave it there for now, but I do hope you ask questions in the Q&A. And again, I think that your acceptance to Drake Law School is a really amazing thing. You have so many choices to make, but know that if you choose Drake, you're going to have an experience here that gives you opportunities to practice while you're a law student, and that's really unique among law schools in this country.
Great, thank you so much, Susie. So now we're going to go ahead and move on to the next section of our event. We do have a current student who is on the call with us tonight, Derek. So first of all, I am just going to ask Derek if you would be able to introduce yourself to us And before we ask you about your internship experiences, could you tell us a little bit about your search for a law school and why you ultimately chose Drake?
Let's unmute myself. All right, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. So yes, my name's Derek Wade, and I'm a second semester 2L, which sounds crazy. Time flies, honestly. So when I was looking for a law school, I was a social worker before coming to law school and worked in child welfare. So I really wanted to go to a school that had a lot of practical opportunities because I hadn't been in the classroom in almost 4 years. And so going back to school full time was, I felt would be a struggle. So having practical opportunities, I felt like would be really important for my educational experience and maybe to make me transition a little easier.
Great. And can you tell us just a little bit about extracurriculars and other things that you're involved in at Drake Law?
Yeah, so I'm very involved at Drake. I'm currently president of Drake Outlaws, which is the LGBTQ student organization. I just, or am transitioning my position as vice president of Drake Law Democrats, as well as vice president of the Public Interest Law Association. I was a 1L representative for the Student Bar Association. This past year, I was the treasurer of SBA, and I was just elected to the vice presidency of the SBA. So that's what I'm doing a lot of right now. And I'm also a public service scholar, which is also called a Cole Scholar as well. I don't know which one is used ubiquitously or not.
Well, that is a lot of involvement. You're very busy. So could you also tell us now just about your experience with the Career Development Office and internship opportunities that you've had so far during your time at Drake?
Yeah, so I think everyone here has helped me in some way, like who's here from the administration. But so getting your first summer job is, there's a lot of pressure there. So I definitely relied on the CDO and Susie here to help me get paid for that internship. So my first summer, I did an internship at the Attorney General's office in the Division of Human Services, where I worked on termination of parental rights appeals on behalf of the state. And then, so Susie helped me get the stipend for that, which is the Iowa Iowa Children's Justice Initiative. That's correct. And so the reason why that's confusing is I also worked at the Iowa Center for Children's Justice last summer part-time. And that's, I got help with that through the CDO from the public interest job fair.
Great. Well, we really appreciate you being here tonight to answer questions. I do want to go ahead and move into our Q&A section. So I encourage our students who are on the call tonight, any questions that you have, whether that be for Derek, for Katie, for Susie, if you want to either enter those questions into the chat, feel free to unmute yourselves as well. And we'll get started with this portion of our event. And Alicia, do you see anything in the chat yet?
Yes, I was trying to unmute myself. Okay, we do have a question. It is from Justin. Justin wants to know, is it true that your grade in a class is solely based upon the final exam? It's not career development, but I'm sure that we'll throw it to, I don't know, who wants to answer that one?
Derek, do you want to answer it?
I can. So there are some classes that your only grade is the final. Attendance is a big issue. I don't know how much you guys know about this. Every undergrad institution is different, but the American Bar Association requires you to have a certain amount of in-class hours. And if you don't meet those, you don't get to sit for the final. So attendance is really important, and your grade depends on that as well. So, but I know your first year, you'll have at least one, maybe two midterms that are worth a smaller portion of your grade, usually 10 to 50%. And then legal writing and legal research, you have a lot of different assignments along the way that help you build up your point totals. And I don't think those classes are curved. I think you get, or legal writing is curved, but legal research isn't. So whatever points you get throughout the semester, those are your points.
Okay, thank you. And Elliot also has a question regarding the grading curve. How does that typically work? Laura, do you remember? We actually got a lesson. Admissions recently got a lesson regarding the grading curve. Do you remember that?
I'm interested.
I was going to say, I think Kara may be able to describe it better than I can.
Oh, no, I can't. There is a curve, but honestly, I'm gonna that's something I'm gonna have to get back to each of you on, and we certainly can do that. Unless Professor Pritchett happens to know off the top of her head. It was explained to me, and it's something I don't work with on a regular basis, so I'm not equipped to explain it to you.
You know, curves are as described, right? They sort of pan out students across a curve where most students are kind of getting a grade in the middle, and then a few are very far in the end, and a few are very far in the top. Only certain classes are curved. It's typically the bigger classes in your 1L year. We have recently bumped up our curve so that the midpoint, kind of the grade that most students get, I can't say exactly what it is, but it's not a C+, I think. It's now higher than that, which is good because it makes, you know, it's helpful in terms of your overall GPA as compared to your GPA coming out of other institutions. But sort of on sort of how that all shakes out from a statistical perspective, I don't teach any classes that have to be curved. So yeah, I'm sure that admissions can follow up with some more details.
And just, you know, I did find the email from Dean Edwards, who always is so kind to explain these difficult things to admissions. And so from the email, the median is a B, and so the mean is between a 2.9 and a 3.1.
There we go. Great.
Yes.
And yeah,
I was almost soon enough.
I know, I was going to say, Alexander already has that information.
Oh, thank you, Alexander. All right. The next question from Jonathan. How difficult is it to get an internship in Des Moines? Katie, how difficult is it?
You know, I don't want to make it sound like it's not difficult, but I will tell you this, the more you use us, the better it is. Derek's a great example. He engaged with us early. He had a great first year summer, and this summer he's got another amazing experience that he wouldn't have had if he hadn't put in that work himself. So we are here. There are a lot of internships. There are law firms, there are state agencies, there are public interest agencies, but they don't grow on trees. You know, you've got to come in, you've got to engage, you've got to look on the job board. You know, when you come to see us in like late April of your first year and say, okay, I'm ready to get started now, there are still jobs there. There really are. Did you miss some? Yeah, you did, you know. So first semester, we kind of leave you alone. That's your time to get acclimated, figure out classes. You're going to hear from us a little bit, and then we start to get more active with you as second semester reps starts getting going as a 1L, because we do want you to engage in that internship. But there are, I mean, any given day, just yesterday I looked on our job board and there were 500 jobs. Now those aren't all Des Moines, those are all over, but that's just pretty common that we have jobs being added every day. So how difficult is it? If you're willing to be proactive, like most of you are, you got into law school, that's going to be a trait of yours. We're going to find you an internship. We also sometimes need to adjust people's expectations, right? I'm going to go do this, and this is the only thing I want to do. Well, then suddenly your world got really small. And so sometimes we're trying to encourage students to say, hey, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? So sometimes that's where our counseling comes in too. We want to increase your chances and increase your odds. But there are plenty of jobs here in Des Moines. And I thought I saw another question about jobs outside of Des Moines for the summer and for postgraduate. Yep, we counsel students regularly. That's why it's so important that you come let us know that when it's time to counsel with us, so that we can help get you set up with those tools. You do need to start those a little earlier so that we can make sure you're keeping up with any law schools that might be in that town, for example. But we regularly have students clerking elsewhere and going elsewhere for postgraduate work. A good chunk are planning to stay here. So that's a good chunk of Drake students. But every year we have, a quarter, at least, that are wanting to go somewhere else. So we're more than able to help you with that job search too.
Okay.
And I was one of my
Go ahead.
my internship this summer is in Washington D.C. With Lambda Legal, so it's definitely possible.
Yeah.
And but you do have to start earlier, because obviously, and I applied in Dallas and Houston as well, and so I was in competition with schools close by to those
Yeah.
places. So I applied in November rather than February.
Excellent. Thank you, Derek. Okay, there's a question from Lizzie. Hi, Lizzie. She wants to know, are the positions in the clinics first come, first serve? Susie, can you shed some light on that?
Yeah, so we have an application process that we open up every semester before students register for classes in the subsequent semester. And it's an application process. So you put in your application, you rank the clinics you want to do, you can rank all of them, you can just say, I want to be in one clinic. And then the faculty choose the students that they want to be in their clinic. I will say we prioritize students who haven't had a chance to do clinic yet, right? So if somebody is applying and they've already done 2 clinics and somebody's applying and they haven't done one yet, we're gonna make sure we see the person that hasn't done one yet. We also prioritize 3Ls over 2Ls to make sure that we're getting students a clinical experience if they want that before they graduate. But I would say almost all students at Drake that want to do a clinic get to do a clinic. Maybe they don't get into the exact clinic that they want to do, although the majority of students do, I think, but almost all students who want that clinical experience are able to have it before they graduate.
Thank you, Susie. Murphy also has a question about the bar passage rate and the employment rate. I know this one. Our bar passage rate is 90%, so we're very proud of that. Our employment rate is 88.5%, and that's the 10-month after graduation employment rate. Katie, if you want to maybe say any more words about that, feel free.
Yep, so I posted in the chat the webpage where you can get this information as well. But these are the numbers that we report on every year, and our bar passage rate really will dictate our employability rate as well. But we are always right around these good high 80s, low 90s numbers. So that's pretty consistent for us here.
Exactly. Katie, can you also talk a little bit about, Murphy has another question. Murphy, you have great questions. How many alumni practice law in Iowa versus other states?
So I don't have a specific number, but
if
I were to guess, I'd kind of say 75-25, are in 75% are in Iowa and then the rest are out. What you can do is you can get on LinkedIn. If you're interested in any city, get on LinkedIn and do a people search and use as your filters the city you want to look at and Drake Law School. Make sure it's Drake Law School, not Drake undergrad. And then right there, you've got this automatic list. And that's not even everybody, because not everybody's on LinkedIn. But that's a great starting point when somebody's trying to explore a new area and we want to look at, children's rights in Seattle. So then I'm going to start digging around and finding my alums that do that work. And then I get that information to our students. So that's why it's so nice that we have alums really everywhere. This week, I'm working with a 3L on connecting them with alums in Cincinnati. So it's, the alums are everywhere. Yes, there's a big chunk that practice here. And I'm going to segue into another question I saw about competition for jobs in Des Moines. One of the advantages, and Susan and I are both alums of a different law school. One of the advantages about being at Drake that our employers here love is that our students are here year round, right? It's not just a summer internship. The other feedback that I get from some of our more competitive Des Moines employers is kind of the genuineness and the authenticity of a Drake student wanting to be here, as opposed to somebody just trying to use a summer internship at a big Des Moines law firm to get somewhere else. So Des Moines students Drake students get kind of some instant credibility and some instant leverage by A, being accessible, can work whenever, and then B, being committed. So our students are very competitive with our judges here on the Iowa Supreme Court. Regularly every year, we've got students that are competing and getting those jobs too. So I feel like we are very, very competitive, definitely here in Des Moines.
Okay,
And
excellent.
I've heard feedback from employers too that they know our students are more likely to be practice ready given the strength of our programs here, and so that often gives straight grads or great students a leg up in getting those coveted internship positions.
Okay, thank you. And Susie or Katie, can you talk about maybe Becca has a question about kind of balancing summer classes and internships. Can either of you maybe share some information on that?
Yeah, I can talk about that. It certainly is possible, and I know a lot of students do it. So I will say that, summer internships, generally our students take those for 3 credits. This is where y'all get to do a little bit of math, but for each credit of an internship, you're expected to put in 45 hours worth of work. So that's like 130 hours over the course of the summer, which gives you some other time to engage in classwork. And if you want to sort of round out your schedule with that. So I know a lot of our students, particularly rising 2Ls, right? So students after their 1L year, maybe they're going to work with a judge for 3 credits in a judicial internship, but then take a couple of classes at the law school to get some more credits under their belt, so that when they start their 12 year, they're working with quite a few credits in the bag. So I think it's really possible. And I think a lot of students do. Take advantage of that opportunity. And I've always been really impressed with the courses we offer here in the summer. There's really some good opportunities there.
And one thing I would add in, we have a policy at the school about how many hours an employer can ask you to work outside of classes, because your job here is really to be a student, right? And we don't want any employers getting you overcommitted, because it can be hard to say no in those situations. So we're also here to help in those situations. If a student finds like they've gotten themselves over their head, how do they extract themselves from a situation or cut back on those hours? Those are all sort of professional development roles that Carol and I can help support students in, because a lot of that is learning yourself too. And sometimes I switch into mom mode. I have older teens, and that, you've got to look out for yourself and your welfare too. You don't have to constantly be checking off, have I done this? Have I done this? Have I done that? All to the detriment of your own wellness and happiness, right? And so sometimes you're going to hear me talking about pumping the brakes a little bit. Where are we at? And all of that is part of law school, is managing your time, managing stress, managing all these opportunities. So all of that is kind of packaged up, but we do have a limit on how many hours we want you working outside of law school, especially your first year. After first year, we kind of trust that you're going to figure things out. But it's really important to us that we're not setting you up for a situation where you're completely overcommitted and don't feel like you're doing a good job at either.
Okay, thank you, Katie. Tara, she has a question about, are 1Ls paired with a faculty mentor? Katie?
You'll have a faculty advisor. Every 1L has a faculty advisor, and so that's kind of the same thing. And then what we often find too is, you've gotten your advisor based on some information that you shared in your process, but sometimes you might find that you connect with somebody else over another matter. My background in higher education law and Title IX work draws students to me who are interested in going into that area, right? So you have your formal faculty advisor, but you might also find that there's another faculty member or staff member like myself who can also guide you in your specific area. And that's one of the beauties of Drake, is that everybody is willing to do that. If you haven't been to our building, I can tell you one of the big differences to me of all the law schools I've been in is the faculty offices are on the main floor, accessible to students. And that is not the case at law schools. Where I went, you kind of had to go up some secret dark stairs and hope to find some faculty, right? Here, that's why they're here, and that's why they're so accessible. So you'll have your assigned advisor, and then there's also others that you're going to maybe find yourself drawn to based on their practice areas.
And Katie, can you also talk about the mentorship program that you have at the Career Development Office?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So we do a mentorship program for 2Ls and 3Ls. Again, in the fall, we're trying not to overwhelm you with too many things as a 1L. But by your 2L and 3L year, we match you up with practitioners, usually in the area. With COVID, there's the ability to maybe match up with someone remotely, but it's based on your interest in their practice areas. And then, you might connect with a judge, a practitioner, a prosecutor, and then we do the initial kind of matching based on your interest. And then that person is your mentor mentor, and you guys can develop that relationship as much as you want. Some people stay in touch a lot, and some people just kind of use it for an initial networking. We want you to make the most of what you want out of that relationship. But yeah, so that's a 2L, 3L program. And then tomorrow night we have speed networking, which is kind of like speed dating. It'll be interesting on Zoom. Those are just kind of some of the examples and the ways we're trying to connect you with all these alums and practitioners that are so excited to work with our law students here.
Thank you. And Susie, I received a question via email, and they want to know a little bit more about that clinic experience and just how many cases, what the caseload is, what that looks like.
Yeah, and I might even ask Derek to chime in here because Derek is currently a student in our general civil clinic. So each clinic is a little bit different, and the faculty have freedom to structure that how they want. I will say that students who take the general civil clinic and the criminal defense clinic typically have higher caseloads. And Derek, I don't know how many cases you have at the moment. I know Derek just got done with the trial. Was that a divorce custody issue? What was going on in that trial, Derek?
It was a private termination of parental rights. I was the guardian ad litem for the kiddo.
Okay. And how many cases do you have right now in the civil clinic assigned to you as an individual student?
6.
6. Okay. And I could say that's typical. I think in the criminal defense clinic, it might bump up a little bit closer to 8. But in the refugee clinic, where cases are much kind of larger and take a lot more time, and the law is much more complicated, and there's a lot of legal research that happens, our students have, closer to 2 or 3 cases each. So it really does depend on the clinic you're enrolled in, and how that faculty supervisor has structured it and how many cases they feel students can handle in the course of the semester. But I think Derek would probably agree that when you have a case and you have a client in the clinic, our faculty really just expect you to be the lawyer on that case. The faculty member is not the lawyer. The faculty member is there as this kind of safety net to catch you, but those become your clients, and you are, for all intents and purposes, a lawyer. One thing I forgot to mention is that Iowa has something called a student practice rule. Most states have a rule like this. Essentially, it allows students to have 45 credits, so that means second semester 12 and beyond, and students who have been certified by the law school as is fit to practice. It allows them to be licensed to practice law and to give legal advice and to appear in court. There are a few limits on what students can do under that, but it is pretty permissive. And we take that student licensure and really make students step up to the plate and become lawyers during their time in our clinical program. So it's an amazing opportunity, and I think that certainly gives you a snapshot of what actual legal practice looks like.
Thank you, Susie. And we have time for one last question, unless there's another one. Feel free to, if you do have one question that's burning, please put it on the chat. Matthew wants to know a little bit more about the alumni network and overseas job placement. Katie?
Sure. So our alumni network, we have somebody in our alumni office who manages those relationships directly with the alums. And then where I come in is where I'm trying to connect an alum with a student, either because of practice area interest or geography. Those tend to be the most common ways that I'm connecting with our alumni in that way. So I hope that answers that part of the question. And then just in terms of job placement, it's kind of this two-way street of us helping guide you as you're doing the front end work. So it's not a job placement in that we find the jobs for you. We have all the jobs on our job board, and we do our OCIs, and we're directing you towards those jobs. We might be sending you ones if you've got some real specific interests. Like Derek I've always known what his interests were, so he and I would work on how do we find this children's rights. That's really specific. So whenever I see something, I'm like, oh, I know Derek would want this. That's why it's so helpful that we get to know you guys pretty well, so that we can get you those interesting ideas that might might fit your path. And then otherwise, we're here to help you put together your best package. You know, is your cover letter competitive? You know, Derek was competing against a lot of people for that internship this summer, and I'm still like so proud of him for getting that. By the way, Derek, but we haven't seen each other in a while in person. But it's just, that's what we're here to do. People that are competing for Department of Justice. Susie and I worked with students 2 years ago who we have 2 students working for the Department of Justice in the Immigration Department. Again, incredibly competitive jobs. They were not at the top of their class, but they had a wonderful package because of their work in the clinic and because of their writing skills that they learned here, that they got their first pick on where they wanted to be, you know. So that's where our office will help you identify what you're wanting to apply for, passing on good ideas to you when we see them, but then also getting your package, your application materials, so that they're as strong as they can be to compete.
Okay, thank you. And let me see, Katie, I think you answered. It looks like the last question from Alexander's regarding housing. What would you recommend? Did you answer that, Katie? About housing, what would you recommend for students who are maybe leasing semester versus a full year? What do students usually do that?
You know, I have to admit, I'm a little biased on this, but I'm going to be real transparent about why. When I meet with students about what they want to do in the summer, a lot of times I get the answer, well, I guess I'll just stay here because I have a lease. You know, and that really does limit you. There are plenty of jobs, don't get me wrong. But if that's not what you want to do, I'd encourage you to kind of think broadly. You know, we had to do that, and I subletted. You know, there's a lot of ways. You know, we combine with Iowa City and do sublets, and you know, there's a lot of ways to think outside of that. I think most students do year leases as opposed to doing 6 months. Derek, you might have something else to add to that. But that would be my only little nugget is don't make, just because you have a lease doesn't mean you have to work here in Des Moines. If you want to try something else, now is the time to try it. And maybe we can help you with that housing situation.
Okay.
Yeah, I had an internship at last summer where we had several Iowa students come to Des Moines. And so a lot of students had sublet from Drake, and Iowa people just took their apartments for the summer, and Drake people took their apartments for the summer. So I took a year-long lease. I also stayed in Des Moines, so I didn't have to worry about that. But I would suggest doing a year-long lease just in case.
Okay, thank you. So we will be wrapping up the Q&A for this part of the session. So I am going to throw it back at Laura.
Okay, thank you, Alicia. We are going to move into our admitted student information, but before we do that, I just want to say thank you to Katie, Susie, and Derek for being on the call with us tonight. We really appreciate your time and all of the great information that you were able to share with us. So thank you so much for being here. And for our admitted students that are on the call with us, again, if you were with us for our last session, you might want to just go ahead and log off because this is going to probably be a repeat of some information for you guys. But for those of you that weren't with us, feel free to stay on and we will talk about some important information for our admitted students. Yes, thanks again, Katie, Susie, and Derek. Okay. So for those of us who are still on, I'm just going to quickly go through some important information for you guys. So starting with our admitted student checklist. If you haven't done so already, make sure to go ahead and complete your Fafsa and make sure to get that sent over to Drake. If you are planning on taking out loans, that's how you're going to qualify for those federal loans. Requesting financial aid. Kara is going to talk a little bit more about scholarships and financial aid here in a minute, so I'll leave some of those details to her. But if you haven't already, go ahead and join the Drake Law School Class of 2024 Facebook group. This is going to be a really great way for you to have the opportunity to meet some of your classmates. If you're looking for a roommate, this is a good way to do that. We also do try to post some important information on there for admitted students as well. I know Alicia has been posting some outside scholarship opportunities, so you definitely don't want to miss out on that information. So make sure to go ahead and join that page. Another important page to bookmark would be our admitted students page on our website. So we have the link there for you. Again, we'll be posting important information about schedule, orientation, things like that. So make sure if you haven't already that you check out our admitted student page on our website. If you do choose Drake, which of course we hope that you do, you'll need to pay your seat deposit. It's a total of $500 broken up into 2 payments. And when you received your admit pack, you should have received information about when your seat deposits are due. But of course, if you have any questions about paying your seat deposit, please reach out to us. And then of course, submit your final transcripts. So as soon as you get those final transcripts, get them sent over to us. We will need them before you get started in the fall. Really quickly, just wanted to go over some popular housing options, because again, if you're choosing Drake, you're going to need to find housing. These are just a couple of examples of apartments that are located close to campus. So if you're hoping to be, very close to Drake, so you can walk to the law school, the law library, the legal clinic, you want those to all be within walking distance, be close to downtown for any internship opportunities. These would be some really good options for you to check out. Otherwise, keep in mind that we do have students that will live in the surrounding area as well. So not all of our students are living right on campus. We certainly do have some students that choose to commute. But if you want to live nearby, these are some good options for you. Also, just wanted to mention the Summer Start program, because this is an option that's available to all of you who have been admitted for fall 2021. It is a great opportunity to get a head start on law school and have the potential to graduate in 2.5 years rather than the typical 3 years. It is open, like I said, to all of you as students have been admitted for fall 2021. We do have the list down below of the courses that are going to be offered this summer. And again, if you go to our website, you'll be able to actually find the schedule when we'll be offering each of these classes. The really nice advantage of the Summer Start program is that you are taking one class at a time. So it is a really nice way to kind of ease your way into things rather than, just getting started, taking several classes at once. A good way to kind of make that transition into law school. So if you want to find that schedule, again, that is on our website, but that will just give you an idea of what classes you'll be taking in the summer. And then I am going to turn things over to Kara just so that she can talk a little bit more about financial aid and scholarships.
Great, thanks, Laura. Yes, financial aid is probably the next big step for many of you. So I wanted to give you an idea of how the process works and what you can expect. The Fafsa is what we use to determine loan eligibility. So if you intend to borrow loans or just want to see what your loan eligibility would be for the upcoming academic year, you'll need to file the Fafsa if you haven't already. The Drake University School Code is listed here for you that you put on the Fafsa. One thing that's usually different for most law students is that as a law student, you are considered independent for purposes of the Fafsa. Therefore, unlike what many students experience during undergrad, there's no parental or guardian information that's factored in. So therefore, because of that, the vast majority of our law students have what we call full financial need and qualify for any need-based financial aid, primarily loans. So when you submit your Fafsa and you list Drake as a school that you want to receive the information, once we receive that at the university here, then our financial aid office will put together your total financial aid package. So if you receive scholarships, that would be part of it. And then from there, your loan eligibility. And there are 2 types of loans that law students can qualify for. We have the federal direct unsubsidized loan, and the maximum in that per year is $20,500. And then we have a Grad Plus loan. And the total eligibility for what we kind of call a cost of attendance for a law student is usually just a little over $60,000 per year. So if you didn't have any scholarship funding, you would have approximately that much available in loans that could be used to pay tuition and then for living expenses beyond that. If you have a scholarship, then your loan eligibility will be less than that. It's a complete package with all things considered. So if you were awarded a scholarship, that information would have come to you in your original admission email when you received your letter of admission. And then your loan eligibility will come to you via an email from the University Financial Aid Office. We actually have an online portal that will contain your financial aid package, your loan eligibility, and then the next steps for what you need to do to request your loans and apply for loans. So watch for that email. In addition to any emails that you're getting from our office, there would be one forthcoming from the financial aid office once your Fafsa has been here and received. If your Fafsa is in, you at this point probably should have received that email by now, or certainly within the next week or two. So if you haven't received that and you think you should have, please reach out to one of us in the admissions office so we can check on that for you. We'll follow up with everyone on this, but I also just want to give you kind of a timeline for the loans. If you are planning on starting in August, we usually tell you to try to have all of your loan documentations finished by June 1st, just to ensure that there's plenty of time to receive your loan funds by the start of school in August. And many people rely on the loan refund, we call it checks, to pay for rent, help you buy your supplies for school and get settled. So that money can't be released until the first day of classes, and we don't want any delays for you because we know you're usually anxiously waiting on that. So be sure that you have this process completed by June 1. For those of you that are thinking about starting in the summer program, there's a whole separate process for summer financial aid. There's additional loan funding that can be available for summer, and so we'll be sending out details on that here in the coming month, later in April, for anyone that's starting in the summer. And that process happens a lot quicker because fewer students are borrowing in the summer, so there's no need to panic about that. We'll walk you through that and get that information to you later next month. Okay, and I'd be happy to answer any questions in regards to financial aid as well. And so with that, that's the end of our actual presentation. We have our contact information listed here so that you can reach out to us as questions come up. As Laura had just mentioned, be sure to keep an eye on the For Admitted Students website and the Facebook page if you're on that. Lots of good information will be posted in both places. And we are happy. I want to be aware of our time and your time. I know you're all very busy, but Alicia and Laura and I will stay on the call here for a little while longer. If there's any other questions, we're happy to answer those. Otherwise, if not, thanks so much for joining us tonight, and be sure to reach out to us if you need any further information.
So out of curiosity, if there is still time for questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely, Alexander.
What would, if I live in Virginia and I have the option of living with my parents over the summer, but I'm debating whether to take a year-round lease, just live at near Drake University for the next 3 years, or whether I should lease. I've been doing a lot with budgeting, so that's why I'm interested in it. What would you recommend? I've looked at a few different apartments. Obviously, the West Village it's between 9 and 10 months, so essentially excluding the summer months. What would you recommend? What works for most out of state students, that sort of thing?
So if I understand correctly, you're thinking ideally you'd want to wait and relocate to Des Moines in August then. Is that right?
Yes, I wouldn't be coming to Des Moines until August. Again, the primary expenditure for me is going to be housing and then living expenses.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I'm looking at that. I also have a very minor question, but I can ask that after everybody else. But yeah, what would you recommend? What do out-of-state students generally do when they move in? Where do they look at? Because
Yeah.
I want.
Drake West Village is very, very popular with law students. It is in a nice location. It's easily within walking distance. It's really just a few blocks from the law school, and the few blocks you're walking are actually across campus. You just kind of walk across campus. So that apartment complex is on the west side of campus. We have quite a few law students who live there. We also have, from what I recall, they have different offerings as far as, 1 bedroom or more. And we do have some students that also room together. That can really help cut down on cost. If you want to consider having another entering law student as a roommate. The Facebook page is usually where those conversations tend to get posted. So coming up here in the near future, students will usually, put information out there if they're looking for a roommate. In past years, we've had a lot of incoming students use that as a way to connect with roommates, which can certainly cut down on the cost. The other very nearby and popular choice for law students is Old Main Apartments, which is just, a block east of our building. And again, they have varying studio, I think, on up in their size of their apartments. And so, I can tell you either of those, you're going to have other law students living in the complex. Those do tend to be pretty popular with our law students. And then I don't know if you're going to be bringing a vehicle from out of state or not, but if you don't have a vehicle with you, those would be extremely close to the law school. Now, if you are going to be living away from campus, then and commuting in, if you're going to have a car and you want to drive to class, in general, about half our students do that. And the nice thing about Drake being a relatively small size campus is there's plenty of options for parking. Last year, the annual parking permit was approximately $200. So that gave you, very nearby parking within a block of our building year round. And so that's another, it's an easy way to commute if you did decide you wanted to live further away, or if you found maybe a 9-month lease that was further away, then the commuting is not a problem. I know a lot of large campuses, just trying to find a place to park, it can be a nightmare. And so I just want to assure you that that's not the case on Drake's campus.
That makes sense. I will be, or I do intend to get I guess a used car before I get down. Hopefully I'll find somewhere I'm able to walk to campus, but I do want to have the car for transportation. My other question, just very quickly, do law school students have access to the campus gym?
Yes.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay.
It's called the Bell Center. That's a great question. And it's not a minor question, because that's a good source of, maintaining mental health for a lot of people as well as physical health. But the Bell Center is located very close to the law school, actually. It's on our side of the campus, very nearby. They do have an indoor swimming pool. They've got basketball courts. They have weight facility, indoor track, and all of your usual gym equipment. So, yep, there's that is very conveniently located, and your student ID will get you access to that.
Cool. Thank you.
And also, you know what? Kara talked about the student ID. Your student ID offers you the opportunity to ride the public transportation for free. So, like, let's say that maybe first semester you couldn't get a car for A or B reasons. You can get around free as long as you present your Drake ID. So that's pretty awesome. I had a student from South Texas. That's how he got to know the city. Like, he would just hop on the bus and like go everywhere randomly, and that's how he got to know the city.
Sounds good. Thank you. And thank you for all the information.
You're welcome.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Any other questions out there? No? Okay.
Okay. Well, we hope to have more of these events, and we'll try and hit on various topics as we proceed here in the months ahead. So we'll be sure to notify you of any future events. And thanks for joining us tonight.
But I did have one more. I hope this isn't too many questions.
That's
like
okay.
I'm
That's what we're here for.
Stealing your time. If I'm at this point, Drake is definitely my top choice. I'm still looking at budget and everything for 2 other schools, but I'm really leaning towards Drake. I don't believe I'll be able to actually visit until later, just because of it's I believe 10 days that you have to quarantine if you take a commercial flight, and I don't have a spring break at my university right now. Do you expect that might be lifted later on in the summer, or what would be the best option for visiting over the summer?
Yeah, that's a good question. We are really hopeful that that is going to change. Fortunately, here in Iowa, the vaccine rollout is going really well. And I think from what we're hearing, that tends to be the case, across the country. And so we're already seeing some restrictions being lifted, that I think we're very optimistic that that will hopefully soon change, Alexander. So we'll be notifying admitted students, once, if a change like that happens, we'll be sure to notify you right away. But we are definitely optimistic, and the law school is planning. I think there was a question in the chat about the fall classes. I mean, the law school is also planning for our summer program to be in person. So that's how optimistic we are that, even by June, things are going to be in a much better shape than what they are right now, even.
Thank you.
You bet.
And Alexander, I moved from the DC, Maryland area to Des Moines about 4 years ago. And so it is wise to be looking at budget and just know that one of the great appeals for my family to move to Des Moines was not just the quality of life, but that the cost of living. Like I feel like my paycheck goes farther here. And that makes a big difference.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm near DC, Northern Virginia right now, and I've been looking a lot at the budget in terms of housing, food, everything else. It's very, and certainly generous scholarship offer as well has made it very affordable. So it makes Drake a great option.
Awesome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Have a good night. I don't know what time it is in Iowa. I guess just 1 hour behind.
5:42 is our time.
It's almost 7 here, so.
Okay. All right.
Have a good night.
You too.
Thanks.
Thank you, Alexander.
You too.
All right.
Okay. Good night, everyone.
Okay, I'm gonna stop the recording right now.